Think there is a rule in nature that the ocean is where the nightmares live. The crushing darkness. The pressure that liquefies bone. The monsters with translucent flesh and teeth like surgical instruments. But 250 million years ago, the water was the only place you were safe. The land belonged to something else. Something the fossil record calls Gorgonopsid, a name borrowed from the Gorgons of myth, those creatures whose gaze turned flesh to stone. The comparison is generous. The Gorgons of the Permian did not need to look at you. They simply struck. And by the time your nervous system registered the bite, your carotid artery was already open. Most assume the Jurassic was Earth's apex of terrestrial violence. The age of the T-Rex. The thunder lizards. The great reptilian kingdoms. They are wrong. The Permian Gorgon era featured predators with 15 cm serrated canines, curved, organic scalpels that found the artery in 1 millisecond. The T-Rex was a biological afterthought. A creature that arrived 180 million years too late to compete with the original masterpiece. Inostransavia. 11 feet of mammal ancestor. A tiger scaled to the dimensions of a grizzly bear. 6-inch sabers jutting from a skull built for one purpose: to grip, to puncture, to drain. And while this predator ruled a supercontinent of ash and heat, the ocean sat warm and empty. A vast, jacuzzi-temperature refuge where nothing hunted because nothing worth hunting had evolved. The water was boring. The water was safe. The land was a slaughterhouse. If these were the perfect apex predators, built with saber teeth and thick-skulled grappling armor, why did 83% of their entire world simply stop existing? The answer is not in their design. Their design was flawless. The answer is in what the planet did to them. But the teeth were only half the weapon. The skull was the other half. And it worked nothing like you would expect. The Gorgonopsid clade did not evolve jaws for crushing. They evolved jaws for locking. The Rubigini skull, a reinforced bone structure comprising 15% of the creature's total body length, operated as a pneumatic grappling hook. Once those sabers punctured hide, the skull torqued downward, anchoring into the wound like an industrial clamp. The prey did not escape. The prey could not escape. The mechanism was designed for permanence. The teeth themselves were not simple daggers. Under magnification, the enamel reveals microserrations, each canine functioning as a serrated scalpel calibrated to shred tissue on both entry and extraction. This was not the bite-and-hold strategy of a crocodile. This was bite-and-run arterial warfare. One strike. One withdrawal. The prey bleeds out in under 60 seconds. And they were not alone. The coprolites, fossilized feces scattered across what is now Russia and South Africa, tell a chemical story. They are the black boxes of prehistoric crime scenes. Analysis reveals bone fragments, keratin traces, and something else. Something unexpected. Compounds consistent with venom. Megawitsia, a smaller but no less lethal member of the Gorgon lineage, may have carried venom glands embedded in the upper jaw. Not the neurotoxic venom of a snake. Something cruder. A hemorrhagic cocktail designed to prevent clotting, to ensure that even a shallow bite became a fatal wound. The skull cross-section reveals ducts. The chemistry reveals purpose. The prey did not simply die from the bite. The prey died because the bite refused to heal. These were not hunters. They were surveillance systems with teeth. They did not chase. They calculated. They struck. They waited. The earth spun faster then. Days lasted only 22 hours. The moon hung closer. Tides surged higher. Circadian rhythms compressed. Evolution operated on fast forward, and the results were visible in every species that crawled across the Pangean wastes. Metabolism ran hotter. Lifespans burned shorter. The entire biosphere existed in a state of accelerated pressure, a planet that demanded adaptation at a pace modern life cannot comprehend. And then the sky betrayed them. The Siberian traps. Not a volcano. A continental wound. Lava flows the size of Western Europe. 2 million years of eruption pumping sulfur and carbon into an atmosphere that was already running thin. The ozone collapsed. Ultraviolet radiation spiked 5,000%. The same sun that powered their hunts became the weapon that sterilized the land. The UV blizzard, imagine the sky not as blue, but as a searing white-violet wall that cooks the skin of anything not in a burrow. The perfect killers had no defense against a sky that turned hostile. It was not a meteor. It was not a war. It was the atmosphere itself, withdrawing its protection in silence. Pangaea was not a continent. It was a 250-million-year-old crematorium. A single landmass where the interior never saw rain, where the equator reached temperatures that would melt asphalt. 35 degrees Celsius. Not a heat wave, a baseline. The air itself was hostile. The only sounds that crossed those desert flats were the low-frequency thuds of 1.2-ton Scutosaurus herds, prey animals armored like tanks, vibrating the ground with each step. And beneath that, silence. The dead silence of an ocean that covered 60% of the globe but produced almost nothing. Panthalassa. 2 Pacific Oceans stitched together. A planetary puddle with no upwelling, no nutrients, no complexity. The grit of that global desert would have filled your throat. The heat would have baked your lungs. The UV would have cooked your corneas in hours. And through this furnace walked the Gorgons. Hunting. Breeding. Perfecting their design across 8 million years of evolutionary refinement. Then the Siberian wound opened. And the 90% extinction began. The Great Dying. The largest mass extinction in Earth's history. 9 out of every 10 species erased. Not by impact. Not by flood. By a slow, grinding betrayal of atmosphere and chemistry. The most complex predators died first. The survivors were not the strong. They were the hidden. Lystrosaurus ugly, pig-faced, burrowing in dirt while the masterpieces burned above. It inherited the earth not through dominance, but through absence. It was underground when the UV peaked. It was eating roots when the apex killers choked on acid rain. The most sophisticated designs failed. The crude designs endured. We like to think of ourselves as the winners of evolution. The end state. The final draft. But we are not the descendants of the Gorgonopsids. We are not the inheritors of their perfection. We are the descendants of the things that hid from them. The burrowers. The scavengers. The creatures that evolution did not perfect, it simply forgot to kill. The Gorgonopsids were not failed mammals. They were a more honest version of us, predatory perfection without the burden of empathy or complex social structures. They were what nature builds when efficiency is the only metric. And nature erased them anyway. Remember the ocean. The safe one. The warm, boring refuge where nothing hunted because nothing worth hunting had evolved. By the time the Siberian traps finished, that water was a boiling acid bath. The pH dropped. The oxygen vanished. Hydrogen sulfide rose from the depths, a gas that smells of rot and kills in minutes. The sanctuary became a second grave. The only safe place on Earth became the fastest killing field. The Permian teaches us that sanctuaries are temporary. That the environments we trust are only stable because the planet has not yet decided to change them. That dominance is not a permanent state, it is a permission slip, revocable without notice. If the most efficient killers the Earth ever produced were erased by a shift in the air they breathed, what makes us think our dominance is anything more than a temporary ceasefire? The Gorgons ruled for 8 million years. We have been here for 300,000. The planet is patient. The planet remembers.